Hello, good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise today. I'm Chamberlain. What's up?
Good morning and welcome to the show. I can't believe it's Thursday already. Good morning and welcome. I'm Maukwe Ogunyusu.
Actually, Maukwe, you don't mind it's Thursday. Tomorrow is Friday, right? Am I Makinde? Good morning and welcome to the program.
I can't believe it's not Friday yet. That's my own issue. What is he waiting for?
24 hours.
Okay, well, yes, that's we have lovely scenery to show you this morning. Abuja, Suleja, actually, even though in Abuja it's 23 degrees centigrade, but there in Suleja, we've got a lovely scenery, yeah, which you can all take in. Lovely sights, don't we all have it?
Well, we want to give you something that will calm you down. I don't know how your week has been, but just taking a look at this is quite soothing. It's still, so take a moment and soak it all in. The weather is calm and cool. I hope it's not flooding yet where you are, but take a look at this. It's Suleja Dam, also known as Kofa Dam, off Zuma Barrack, or behind Zuma Barracks, from what we hear. It means it's very close to the Zuma Rocks, along Buntu Ija Bagi Road in Tafa local government area of Niger State. No, it's not in Abuja. I remember growing up and we used to think Suleja, there was this federal government college there for the gifted children. And I remember that, you know, we used to imagine what it would be like in Suleja. What if I was picked to go to that school? The school for gifted children in Suleja. But hey, there's so much more to Suleja than just that school. By the way, I do not know what has become of the school, but at least we can tell you what is happening with the dam, which is supposed to supply water to the people of Suleja. This is how it looks now. It's pretty still, very beautiful, very calming, and I hope it does that for you this morning. Ayo.
What I'm looking at right now is really, really tempting. Hey, guess what? Between Abuja, where you are, and Suleja Dam, it's just about an hour, maybe just a little over an hour by road. I don't know if there's any helicopter that can take you there, but this is definitely a place you just want to go and sit down somewhere. Gosh, I wish someone would just build some kind of resort around that place. Just go there, sit down, and forget all your worries until you have to go back to the hustle and bustle of the city. But this is definitely a very beautiful sight. And by the way, it's a dam. What does that mean? It means that it also generates hydroelectric power and controls flooding in the area. So that's that for that. And all of the information is right there online if you want to go check it out yourself. Good morning again, everyone. So, Chamberlain, what's happening today?
Yeah. Well, just we need to look out for the minimum wage meeting with the president today. Remember, they had met and they did give indications that they were going to continue that meeting today. So all eyes will be on that one to find out what happens next with all of this. So those negotiations are going back and forth. And by the way, guys, don't forget the Governors Forum, PDP Governors Forum. They seem to threw their weight, as a matter of fact, behind Labour and their demands. But you know what? Their APC counterparts are meeting to also see, okay, we will equally come up with our positions. I think maybe that will be before the Nigeria Governors Forum, which comprises of all the parties, will then meet and decide what happens moving forward.
Political grandstanding. Whatever it is that they do, you know, whatever happens in both forums of the political parties of the governors or their political gathering, may Labour be the winner. That's all I can say. Because next week, we know that we've been hearing that the president will be sending the minimum wage bill to the National Assembly. Just yesterday, we understand he asked the National Assembly to increase the budget by, I'm trying to remember, is it how many trillion now? Is it 6 trillion?
6.2 trillion.
Something, 6.2 trillion naira. Very, very significant sum. And I'm thinking, I may be wrong, I'm thinking that might be ahead of this significant increase we should see in minimum wage. So let us hope that whatever discussion Labour is having with the president today is something that will yield fruit. Ayo.
Well, most certainly. Another thing, still talking about money, banks have to raise a lot of capital, in the race to meet the deadline of the CBN so they can remain in business. And that's what Business Morning on Sunrise Daily will be looking at this morning. Expectations for investors as banks' capital raise heats up. That's at 10 o'clock this morning. And let's take you through some of the papers today. This morning, most of the papers lead with stories about the Nigerian economy. Look at the Guardian newspaper. Nigeria nears 14 trillion naira deficit as Tinubu adds 6.2 trillion naira to budget. Find the details of that story on page 6 of the paper today. The front page of the Nigerian News Direct, 2024 budget. Tinubu eyes Senate approval for extra 6.2 trillion naira to tax FX gains by banks and proposed amendments to Finance Act. That story is on page 4 of the paper this morning. Front page of Business Day this morning, Nigeria's forex inflows surge 57% as Naira shows stability. And look at the riders, inflows via CBN up 127.97% in 1 month. FX turnover rises by 180.47% in 1 year. Details continue on the inside pages of the paper. The front page of Daily Trust expresses PDP governors worry over hardship, mismanagement of economy, frown at government's inability to resolve wage crisis, LG autonomy assured under us. We'll respond appropriately, according to APC. Details of that story on page 4 of the Daily Trust newspaper today. The Vanguard newspaper, telecom sector hard hit by harsh government policies. That's according to a report. Harsh policies whittling purchasing power of telecom subscribers, smartphone shipments shrink, operators' revenue dip, Nigeria's golden sector about to lose relevance. Details of that story you'll find on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper today. The front page of Daily Independent, PDP governors back Fubara move to tackle Rivers crisis, lament state of economy, seek credible elections, express optimism of returning to power in 2027, support Labour's demand for enhanced minimum wage. Details on the inside pages of the paper this morning. The Daily Times newspaper, Obaseki kicks as court reinstates Shaibu as Edo deputy governor. Edo government assembly head to appeal court. Details of that story on the inside pages of the paper this morning. Look at the front page of Blueprint newspaper. For the second time in 7 years, Ndume incurs Senate's wrath. Sacked as chief whip, Monguno steps in. He's free to join PDP or any opposition, according to APC. Group backs embattled lawmaker. Details continue on the inside pages. Same stories on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. Days after criticizing Tinubu, Senate sacks Ndume as chief whip, replaces him with Monguno. APC says Ndume free to resign from party. Akpabio reshuffles Senate committees, moves him from appropriation deputy chairman to tourism committee chairman. Details continue on page 3. And right at the bottom of the page, Tinubu writes NAS moves to increase 2024 budget to 33.7 trillion naira. Requests NAS approval for additional 6.2 trillion. Seeks amendments to Finance Act to impose tax on banks' forex windfall. House approves 1.912 trillion naira NDDC budget. That story has its details on the inside pages of the paper this morning. And these are some of the papers we have for you today.
All right, so go ahead and make your pick and tell us whatever, you feel strongly about. We'd like to hear from you on those ones. So yesterday we did bring you some reports about protest in University of Ibadan. So there's been an update on that matter, but have a look at this report and then we're going to get some conversation ongoing on that subject matter.
Aggrieved students of Shakpade Polytechnic are at the premises of the Ogun State Police Command Ileweron in Abeokuta, the state capital, to protest the killing of their colleague by a suspected hit-and-run driver last week.
We are here today to submit our petition paper to the Nigerian police and making our demands. And what is our demand? Our demand is that the suspected vehicle that was said to have ran or drove into the premises of the NYSC should be fished out.
The Commissioner of Police, just like myself and most of the police officers we are meeting here, we have children in institutions in different places around the globe and particularly in the country. And no parent will want to see, or as we are walking here, they will call us that this has happened to your child anywhere and we want to keep quiet about it.
They say the march to the command was necessitated by their desire to get justice for their fellow student, and all these are listed in the petition to the State Commissioner of Police as they demand that the matter be investigated.
We have done our fact findings and we've seen the truth, and it seems these people are trying to hide something from us. The state coordinator of NYC is trying to hide something for us. He's hiding the person, the suspected car that hit our students. Eyewitness claim that the suspected person drove into the NYC camp immediately.
The students claim that the driver of the suspected hit-and-run vehicle drove into the NYSC compound, an allegation dismissed by the police authorities.
The alleged vehicle was inspected. There was no single scratch on the vehicle. And this is suggestive of the fact that it may not be the vehicle, because a vehicle that will cause such a fatal accident.
Well, that is clearly not the report for the University of Ibadan protest, so we apologize for that one. So I guess we'll bring it to you much later. But the crux of the matter was that the students of University of Ibadan did hit the street protesting some of the decisions and policies that the school had introduced. Now, we also understand that they had a meeting yesterday with the management of the school, and then there were some resolutions which they also did put up a statement on. So I guess maybe we'll see that later as well. But we'll go ahead and bring in guests this matter. But, you know, part of those concerns and the reasons that came up during that was electricity. And then there's been comments concerning affordability. Can public universities afford the electricity bills that they are charged by the discos in their respective localities? We'll also bring an expert who will join us and shed some light on some of the scenarios concerning electricity, the pricing, the tariff, if you will. But first, let's go to Bolaji Aweda, who is the president of University of Ibadan Student Union. He joins us virtually. And thereafter, we'll also have Professor Yemi Oke, who is an electricity expert of University of Lagos. He also will join us. Mr. Bolaji Aweda, good morning. Can you hear us?
Good morning, sir. I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, so yesterday you had the protest, and then there was a meeting of which you put up a statement. So could you tell us, what is the current position of things about your protest right now?
Thank you very, very much for the opportunity to be here this morning. So yesterday we had a protest to state our grievances as regards the new policies of the school, to a statement purportedly from the school to rationalize electricity. And after the meeting yesterday, the school denied that they did not put out that statement, and it has been resolved. So everything that we went.
All right. So we'll go ahead and get Bolaji back on. So we do hope that is not the tariff that's causing this. I mean, the electricity supply scenario.
Yes, it got it.
Okay. We lost you for a moment, Bolaji. Looks as though we lost him again. Okay, it's just coming in broken occasionally, so we'll try and go ahead and correct that. But let's go to Professor Oke. We also did tell you, as a matter of fact, a former Vice Chancellor of University of Lagos has been quoted to have said, as things presently stand, no public university can afford the electricity tariffs being charged. They talked about their subvention. and how the subvention is just a far cry from the tariffs. And Professor Kerr, this is where you come in here in this matter. You've severally spoken up about some of these scenarios, and maybe you tell us if it's not falling on deaf ears. But this kind of conversation, has it come up on campus, maybe at the Senate or where you were? And if it did, what kind of conversations went on?
Chamberlain and others, we've been having this conversation from time to time. As a matter of fact, as a university, we had anticipated this scenario. I'm a member of staff and Senate member of the University of Lagos, so I'm quite familiar with the challenges of public universities or public institutions vis-a-vis electricity consumption. I'd speculated that a day like this would come. My school, at some point, had to set up a committee to look into it. University of Lagos, at some point, was thinking of self-generating electricity. The Fashola regime, as Minister of Power, also tried to propose IPPs for some federal universities, because there and then we realized the estate bills of universities would not be affordable. Something was given. Is either the consumers, the community, the university community will pay for it. And when we talk of the university community, we talk of the students, essentially, both undergraduate students and graduate students. We talk of university staff and management, and we talk of others. So if the university will need to pay for electricity being consumed by them, it's going to create crisis. University of Lagos, like University of Ibadan and other universities, have been threatened by disconnection. And I'm saying it on here for Nigerians to hear. So University Teaching Hospital was actually disconnected at some point. University of Lagos had been threatened several times of disconnection by the suppliers, by a particular disco. Is this sustainable? It's not sustainable. Are we addressing the concerns? No. University of Lagos spends millions, hundreds of millions of naira to fuel diesel consumption in student hostels. How much are the students paying for those hostels? You know, Chamberlain, your guess as good as mine. Any attempt by the management of University of Lagos or University of Ibadan or other universities, public universities in Nigeria, to increase rates of student hostels, not even other bills, not tuition now. My fellow Nigerian students will go up in arms against them. Legitimately, I was an activist while I was in school. Ordinarily, if I was in school, I would have led that kind of protest as a student, because I would need electricity to study and work for my future. So we can't blame them. Who do we blame? We blame the discos. We can't blame the discos. They're in business to make money, and they are threatened, they're challenged financially. We will blame the federal government. Of course, the ball would always stop on the desk of the federal government. And most universities, if you go abroad, even smaller universities do generate their own electricity. How? Because they pay decent fee for those services. And there is huge investment in terms of private-public partnership. My university, in York University, where I graduated, had what we call matching grant. They are allowed to raise money to charge reasonable fees. For instance, if York University or a department raises $500 million, the Ontario government and federal government will match it up with another $500 million. We call it matching grants. Universities there are encouraged to strive to raise money, generate income, and government is matching by encouraging them.
Okay. Prof, I'm going to ask you to hold your thoughts for a moment, because I understand that our student union president is back, Mr. Bolaji Aweda. I would like you to quickly, I don't know whether you've heard what Prof has said so far. You have told us that the situation in the University of Ibadan is calm now. You've had conversations with university authorities, and they seem to be listening to you. But, you know, the question is, what is the long-term solution? Because what we heard had sparked the protest was this issue of 10-hour rationing electricity, which the university management has debunked. But given what you know and what we all know about what has happened with electricity tariff and how universities could be impacted, what is the long-term thinking of the student union around this particular problem?
Okay, good morning. I don't know you. I'm currently being at.
Yes, I can hear you. Please go ahead, Mr. Aweda, if you can hear me. It does appear that we do have some audio challenges there. I don't want to put it out to data, but I hope that network connection is better. Yeah. Mr. Aweda, can you hear me? Because it does appear you're speaking, but I can hardly hear you.
I can hear you now. Can
okay, please go ahead. Yes, I was going to ask. I was asking you what the long-term solutions were, you know, for the student union of University of Ibadan, given the challenge we all know that universities are facing with electricity tariff.
I think the biggest solution here is for the government to take off the electricity bill from the universities. It's quite evident that almost all universities.
Oh, well, I could only hear the first part, which is that government needs to take up the bills. I'm going to come to you, Prof. Do you think that is a feasible solution, that government should pay electricity bills on behalf of universities?
I was a student, as I told you, and I still have that blood flowing in me. I remember years back in the University of Ilorin, there was a power blackout when we were watching a Nigerian match. We went crazily. I wouldn't understand. There was a shutdown, and we went to vandalize. Students actually burned down the generator set, which should have been an alternative to which student raising. And now I'm kind of thinking, benefit of hindsight. I mean, would that be normal? Definitely not. Student will be a student, of course. That's who we were then. But I'm not going to blame them. The question is this: federal government realistically can't afford to take up electricity bills of Nigerian universities. I mean, you and I know that the federal government is struggling with certain economic measures, you know, to jumpstart our economy. And it's not only the students that are consuming this electricity, we even have staff. University lecturers are still asking for more money in terms of reasonable, decent salary. And then you are jacking up the electricity consumption in their offices, in their service apartment. And the reality is that federal government can't reasonably take up the electricity bills. Are we now seeing universities to enjoy a kind of disaggregated tariff, a privileged tariff that will not be cost-reflective tariff, that will not be service-based? Then we can work that out. Then the private sector should come in, I mean, by way of support, by way of endowment, and then the federal government will come in, the state government will come in, the host state government should come in, just like, you know, for instance, I always start the example of my own university there. There's a component of the income of that university that is generated by the York University. There's a component of it that is sent by the Ontario government. There's a component of it that comes from the government of Canada, and there's a component of it that comes from the municipalities, which is Toronto. Because that's the way university should function.
Yeah, but the question is, what should it take for that sort of conversation to happen? Because this has only come to light because the students of the University of Ibadan went on protest. They protested, but this is not the first time we're seeing it. You did mention that, you know, the University Teaching Hospital had been cut off very embarrassingly from electricity supply. Clearly, you know, Professor Ogundipe, who, you know, spoke about this particular matter, there was no protest in University of Lagos before this matter came up at an event where he was. And he quickly mentioned that, look, no university can afford this 330% electricity hike in tariff.
Wow.
That, universities were only getting 150 million naira in subvention. A university like the University of Lagos had 1.7 billion naira to pay in electricity bills. These are humongous figures when you look at what it is we're talking about. So what should it have taken when we're talking about this cost-reflective tariff? Shouldn't we have been thinking that there will be institutions that will not be able to afford this tariff?
We're turning in a dangerous terrain, dangerous direction. And as you said, I'm not saying something new. Most of these conversations I've had like 10 years at the minimum, and that So electricity use across, now, after 15 years, we are now going the direction of state electricity regulatory regime that had speculated about 15 years ago. This same thing we are talking about. There's no way universities, not a single university, will be able to afford value-based electricity bills. None. Professor Budeke struggled using his personality to negotiate things, to make things happen, to plead, and because he enjoyed the kind of the horror around the private sector. Being a researcher himself, was able to talk to them. He did most of those things on his PR. But the current administration is also doing the same thing. But is this sustainable? It's not sustainable. And the university is going to go in this particular direction. We're going to look at the number of students per program and the value of that program. For instance, if you have 200 students in a particular program, for instance, I know when I speak of medicine and law, it will attract the attention of Nigerians. As we have 200, we have 50 students in the medical school. I will try to calculate the cost of training 50 students or 500 students in a particular program. If you look at their electricity consumption, look at their laboratory requirements, if the university cannot afford it, the university will just step down that cost. Any program that is not viable, that the university cannot sustain, the university will have to step it down. It will not offer it. Because there's no way university cannot offer it. Because there's no way university cannot offer it.
Prof, one of the issues that I was going to raise with you is what you just mentioned about the state electricity supply systems. I'm just wondering whether or not, from what you know, from what you can see, we are prioritizing academic education, particularly at the university levels, given this body language. This is not the first time we're hearing of this, particularly in the universities. I remember, I think it was some time ago, you talked about the teaching hospital being blacklisted or blacked out because of this particular issue we're talking about. So it just leads to the question whether or not we are prioritizing our academic institutions who are supposed to be the brains of the nation, where we're supposed to draw people who will come up with ideas that will take the nation forward.
We are definitely not doing that. We are not doing that. And I said something that appeared scary. I give somebody a picture that, we're saying this is what it takes to train an engineer. This is what it takes to train a pilot. This is what it takes to train a medical doctor. And the government and the stakeholders are saying, we can't afford to train them. Just train them anyhow. The university will be forced to train a doctor anyhow and use those doctors to the system because that's the best the university could do. And they'll be performing surgeries and attending to our medical needs. We're going to train engineers. Engineers, an average engineer that ought to spend 100 million naira per head before becoming a standard graduate. The system can't afford to support him with more than 10 million naira. Definitely it's going to be quarter-baked, not half-baked. Then we're going to yield them out there to be practicing engineering, to be constructing those bridges and roads. We're going to train pilots because government is only able to afford 5 million naira to train a pilot as against 500 million naira. We're going to train the pilot anyhow based on the available resources and use the pilots to go and be flying aeroplane and private jets. All is not well. And that's what the investor has been saying. But saying, hey, we can't go this route. And this time he's saying, just keep trying, train doctors, train nurses, train lawyers. We're going to train lawyers that are going to be turning our judicial system upside down because we can't afford to train them properly. Of course, they have to graduate. If they are not graduating, another set of students will come. So this time we're under pressure to continue churning out graduates. Some will pick up at the end of the day in practice. Some will never really be able to pick, and they will be practicing that kind of profession at a very pedestrian level. And it's not good for the system. And that's why we're having all kinds of things happening in our politics. As rightly said, we have not prioritized or given sufficient attention to academic institutions. If you must get you track, you must start from there. The scientists, the physicians, the doctors, the engineers, the statisticians, the accountant. We go to train accountant who cannot even balance our cash flow, even manage our economy.
Now, with that information put out, yeah, my apologies, Prof. With that information put out, I'm wondering, how even the students themselves feel about that, how hopeful they are that the qualifications that they're going to get, the certification they're going to get, is actually something that can take them anywhere, particularly given the conditions through which they have to learn. I'm not sure if Mr. Aweda is with us right now, in the studio, whether or not he's been able to rejoin us back, on the program. Is Mr. Aweda there with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Now, you heard, Prof talk now, and I'm just wondering how that makes you feel, the students feel, about the kind of environment through which you have to learn and this added electricity burden on the students. How does it make the students feel? Is this something that the university management understands?
It makes us feel very, very bad. I mean, I agreed with Prof from the beginning, but when he started talking about shifting the cost of electricity, take for example, to the student, it's not feasible. You can't have students pay 250 million on electricity per month. It's not sustainable. Nobody has the money in this country. For students of public universities, we're in public universities in the first place because people cannot afford to go to the private universities and stuff. And we believe that is where education should be affordable. That is where we can go to. The only solution to this matter is for the government to either take up electricity bill, take it off from the universities, or subsidize it to a very, very large extent. Universities are crumbling. It's not happening. It's not a problem peculiar to any university alone. It's happening all over. Students of Uniben protested earlier this month over our power outage since May. How can we have institutions of higher learning where we are supposed to breed future technocrats not have electricity for over 1 month? It's worrisome and it's very, very bad. The only solution to this, and if there's a lingering crisis, the government has to look at it critically. The lingering crisis is that all universities cannot afford to pay for electricity due to the high tariff. Whatever the government is supposed to do is to look at why all universities cannot pay and then look for a way to solve it, either by taking off the electricity bill from them or by subsidizing it. We can't live it.
Okay. Well, Mr. Aweda, I was actually going to ask you a second question.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead. We can hear you.
A lot of things are tied to electricity on campus. Without electricity, security is poor. Everything is bad. I think that since electricity is priority and it's a big problem for all universities in Nigeria.
All right, Mr. Aweda,
the government should do something.
When you say government, and that's where I'm going next, when you say government, are you talking about the federal government or the state governments? Because now, from what the Prof said, the states now have the authority by law to generate electricity themselves. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, you also know that the reality is stuck in the face of everyone. Everything is increasing. I know that food costs are increasing, but then the universities have to pay teachers, the people who teach students in class. They also are expecting one way or the other that their salaries will be increased, and the running cost of the universities will also have to increase. Do you think that is something realistic that parents of students in the university should also consider in the conversations that are to come?
No, if you're talking about payment of salaries of teachers, I mean, I think you mean lecturers. Salaries of lecturers is currently being paid by the government.
Well,
if
I'm
you're talking
aware of
about
that.
states,
I'm aware of that. I'm just asking whether you think it is realistic for schools, particularly universities, to increase costs of anything that the students have to pay. Do you think it's realistic?
well, it is not realistic because we already even have all of these fees added to fees of students. And the truth of the matter is that it will keep increasing. How long are we going to continue paying higher and higher for electricity bill? How long? The electricity bill over the last 1 year, electricity tariff over the last 1 year has been increased how many times? So that means that today, when you ask people to pay for electricity and they've paid for utility bill, tomorrow you will tell them that no, this thing has increased, please bring more. The only sustainable thing is for the government to take over payment of electricity bill from universities, since that is a common problem for everyone. That solves the issue to a very, very large extent.
We're winding down on this now. So the concern now is, yes, we also know the National Assembly will tell you, look, the law is there, they review these tariffs almost on a regular basis. Some private universities tell us we overcame this by coming up with an IPP. So for you, what would you recommend as the solution before we go?
Okay, you're talking to me now. Okay, yes. What I would recommend? See, it's a worrisome trend. I have had to lecture and teach my students using rechargeable lamp, using torchlight from our phones, and got the student to light up the classroom, and we have to do what we have to. It's a bad situation. I've personally experienced it. So how do we go? Government should continue with the IPP structure that Fashola proposed for universities. One, government should step in to pick up a quantum of electricity bills of the university. Two, maybe the student should also be willing, maybe with the student loan scheme now, the component of the fee should go for utilities, while the universities also should try to scale up internally generated funds to augment some of these payments or bills. Then the schools should also give concession rates to universities, while post-state government should also do something in the realm of licensing private stakeholders. Because if, for instance, Lagos State government licenses a disco in Lagos, make concession unilag to them and they work for the activities. Of course, maybe they should, private individuals, private investors should also assist the universities in generating electricity. Right. And the concession bills with that aggregated solutions here and there, I think that'll be a way out of it. But it's not the fact that government alone can show that responsibility, because there are so many public services calling for attention in the hospitals, in the prisons, in everywhere, in services, military. So it's going to be a huge burden on government that is struggling economically. But then it's something that is workable.
All right. We do thank you very much indeed, Yamake, Professor of Energy and Electricity Law, University of Lagos. We've also had Bolaji Awada, President, University of Ibadan, Student Union. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time this morning. And speaking of which, Prof did mention student loan. We'll talk about that in just a moment. We'll get some response to, is it working? Can it be accessed? What are the challenges? Find out in a moment.
The future belongs to the dreamers, to the doers, to those who are not afraid of the side hustle. It's for those who are ready to turn their passion into something big. And to help keep you revitalized and inspired, Top Tea is with you every step of the way. You are made for more. Find your inspiration. Top Tea, big round bags of flavor.
We are thrilled to have you on board as we chart the course for our next chapter. We're inviting
the world with Channels TV Podcast and get all the trending stories. Simply log on to channelstv.com. Click on podcast, select the program of your choice, and listen. Our podcast is available on Apple, Google, and Spotify. Tap the expertise you trust. Touch the stories that touch you. Anytime, anywhere.
The council chamber is filled, from the leadership of the National Assembly, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, some ministers, heads of agencies, members of the board and management team of the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, led by the board chairman, Mr. Jim Ovia, to students and representatives of some tertiary institutions. They're here for the official launch of the portal of the Nigerian Education Loan Fund. President Bola Tinubu arrives to preside over the event. The chairman of the board makes a few remarks on the initiative.
Mr. President, I will also start by making reference to World Bank as well as the United Nations Development Goal, of which education is number 4, and of which Mr. President has recognized that.
The president restates his conviction that education is the greatest weapon for building an inclusive and fair society.
Without education, there is no development. Without education, you cannot even successfully conquer poverty, insecurity, and abuse in the society.
He then turns to the managing director.
At this stage, we are asked if you have enough funding to disburse to the students who had applied. May I ask that question?
Your Excellency, you certainly may. At this stage, we have more than enough funding. When we start to promote this properly, we will probably need more. But right now, we can disperse to every single person who has applied.
The president then launches the portal.
It's my order to launch the program.
He also handed out checks to some students from the 6 geopolitical zones and representatives of some tertiary institutions, signaling the commencement of disbursements of the student loan. The scheme is expected to have a positive impact on the lives of the average Nigerian family. From the presidential villa, Lanre Lasisi, Channels Television News.
So Mr. Jacob Pella joins us now. He is the CEO of TAF Africa. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Good to be here.
We had a gentleman about this launch of the student loan saying that the TG will disperse to every single person who has applied. Mm-hmm. You seem to have some concerns about the operations of the student loan. What are they?
First, it's a good thing. I applaud the president for the launch, but I think they sort of put the horse before the cart. I had expected them.
That's a good way to go.
Yeah, but then
the cart before the horse, or horse
horse before the cart. The cart before the horse.
Okay.
Sorry. Thank you. Yeah, but I had expected them to at least create some awareness about the portal in particular that they launched, because that's the only process for application. And
that can still happen.
Well, it should have happened before the launch. Okay. So, because right now it's open. But my concerns, like you rightly said, is access. Access for persons with disability in particular. By 3 a.m. this morning, I was on the portal, and I wanted to navigate and see how it works. Mm-hmm. Of course, I'll have limitations because I don't have matriculation numbers and all that. But then, how accessible it is for the blind? They will not be able to access it because they have not incorporated the plugins, that would either magnify or speak to the words or speak to the volume of information they have on the portal. That is going to be a key problem for the community of persons with disability. And of course, you talked about digital divide. There are many, I can tell you for free that about 80% of the community don't have access to digital platforms like theirs or any. Many of them are not computer literate, So there's going to be a huge problem. However, it can still be solved. I had postulated when this whole thing started that there is a need for them to have a person with disability within the administration so that they can be guided on what to do for the community.
Do they have to be within? They can consult, they can get across to them?
It doesn't matter how they do it. If they want to do it telepathically, as long as they provide solution for this critical demography of people. The president said yesterday, this whole thing is targeted for the most vulnerable. The most vulnerable will not be able to access it. That's a major problem. I said, there are solutions, if only they will listen. I watched the CEO, the gentleman. He spoke eloquently, and talked about what they are going to do. Those things were things that they should have done even before the launch. However, I think it was Martin Luther that said that the time is always right to do what is right. We can get it fixed now. If they reach out, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't necessarily have to be. It can be anybody and any other.
So, shed some more light on this. So, when you get to this Selenium portal, this is the one you access, right?
Yes.
So at what point, from logging in and all of those things, what do you expect at different stages?
Brilliant, and brilliant presentation. If you look at this portal, I am sitting here. I am closer to this portal than yourself. I can't see Jack. So there's a need to have a magnifying plugin. And if there is, tell us where it is. They need to have a magnifying plugin so that visually impaired individuals like me will not have to bury our eyes into the system to be able to navigate all the departments, So, number one, for the visually impaired. What about the blind who won't see anything at all? There's a need for them to have maybe a speaking plugin that can speak and read this and help them navigate through their website, So these plugins, Chamberlain, are free. They are free on any website creating portal. They can, however, we can still afford to buy the ones that are a bit more expensive and technologically advanced, that can guide even with Braille applications or interface. So these are some of the challenges that is going to bedevil this initiative, beautiful initiative, if it is not immediately taken care of. I mean, the issue of awareness is another thing. You know, how many of the community members, not only community members, students in general, how many of them are aware of this?
You mean across the country? Across
the country, yes. I challenge you. If they think that they have enough numbers, let them show me data.
Mr. Pele, so the speaking with the this is not a chairman now, but I think I don't know what the title is. Is the executive director of NELFON? Because I know there's a chairman.
There's a chairman who is the former. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, he was there yesterday at the launch,
yes.
And I recall the president also asking them a question. I think he was posing it to the executive director. I think that's the title. And he said, "Do you have enough money?"
Yes,
you know,
and he answered they have 35 billion.
He said, yes, well, we do not have, we have enough for now. For those who have applied, we can cover them, but we'll be expecting much more for the generality of people we hope will be applying. So it does appear that this is just, first and foremost, to get running, to keep going at first. But the awareness, I mean, with the launch yesterday, there should be a greater awareness that this program has now started. So isn't that already taken care of? I mean, the problem of awareness which you raise, that people might not be aware.
Well, you said there should be awareness, so it's not enough. The only time people, this whole country knew that something like this was happening was the launch. What happened before the launch? What effort did they make?
Well, but it's not so late now, is it?
Yeah, but let it be done now. And if we don't talk about it, it may not be done. That's my challenge. You know, they need to have a strategic awareness process or campaign. You know, I'm expecting them probably to take a tour of the universities, create a town hall meeting, engage the people, speak with them, interact with them. I was thinking about, by 4 a.m. this morning, I was thinking about quick, immediate measure. Can we create or even use known offices, 774 local government area? Can we establish check-in centers? You know? Yes, we can.
Yeah.
All the local government areas?
Yes, we can.
So while you're thinking about that, it would seem that you're also, removing students from any responsibility of being informed about things that concern them. Time was when we used to be forced to, sit at the news at 9 p.m. and watch what was going on. So don't you think that this should create some awareness among students that, look, it's not all social media. You should be able to, I want to believe that this launch should have been captured on social media too, but people should also, make an effort to be aware of things happening around them.
Exactly. The point is, if I'm a custodian of information, until I release that information, people will not get hold of that information. The custodians in this is NELFON. They need to put out the information out there. And remember that I said they need to probably take this campaign to the universities. So I'm not limiting them in any form. However, there has to be a concerted effort, a deliberate effort, targeted at creating awareness that you can sit back and say, this has a very great impact.
So, but if you look, I mean, if you just check and you surf, you get to find NELFund, the part where they've got support, ticketing system, race ticket, view tickets. There are ways that you can get across to them.
Let me tell you, listen, Chamberlain, the idea here is not to criticize them.
This is just making an appeal. Working.
I did it this morning by 4:15 a.m. I sent them, and then on their portal they say, oh, check, an email had been sent to you. No email was sent. Oh. Yeah. So glitches have started.
You opened the tickets. You did all of that.
Yes. I sent an email. My name is Jake Epele. I can give you I sent all the necessary information, and I can copy and send back to you.
So up until before you got into the studios, you didn't receive any.
No response.
Did you check your spam or something?
No response.
Do you think it's because you don't have a matric number?
No, this is mere inquiries.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with metric. I'm not applying. I can't apply. I'm not a student, you know?
Yeah, because there isn't any part where they talk about matriculation number
there is.
If you're to open a ticket.
Oh, no. Yes, exactly.
If you're to open a ticket.
Absolutely. There's nothing like that. Yeah. It's just, and it shouldn't be, because it's just a part of the portal for inquiries. Anybody can make inquiry. You don't have to have so, you know, I mean, I like the simplicity of the portal design.
Yeah, because we had raised problems, well, I say question about digitalization gap.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it does appear that this is simple enough for anyone to be able to use.
No, not for persons with disability.
Okay, so apart from, you know, improving it for persons with disability, for any student who has written JAM, because now you have to, the JAM tests are computer-based, so no one can feign ignorance of not having come in contact with a computer before. Do you think that says anything about, you know, why the digitalization gap might not really be a problem?
Well, it will be. Look, let's even look at the geographical challenges, the location of individuals like people who live in far north, you know. How do you, they don't know how to access the computer.
No, but they do have schools.
They have schools there. Yeah. And interestingly, from what we have read so far, they say that, you know, the Northern Varsity is more proactive in the loan scheme. That's according to NEL Fund.
Well, let us give them let them give us the numbers. And I want to know, in disaggregation, how many persons with disability, how many persons with albinism, the blind, the hard in hearing. I need to know that. But let me speak to the issue you raised, Chamberlain. Chamberlain, haven't you seen computer scientists in Nigeria universities that finished computers and got a degree and they don't have a laptop?
That's a different.
They don't have one, but that doesn't mean they don't know how to use one.
They don't know. Some of them don't know how to use the computer. I can tell you that.
Computer science students?
It is a possibility.
So, but I'll struggle to believe that.
The one that I can tell you, and I don't want to mention him, my own cousin, finished, doesn't have a laptop.
I mean, if not having a laptop is different from not being able to use a laptop.
Well, affordability is the problem. You know, even when the laptops are there, they can't afford it.
So at least if they take a look at this plugins challenge, fit in the plugins, get Braille system into all of this, have a little bit more awareness, this should cause massive improvements to some of the issues.
To a great extent. There are other challenges, you know, challenges of the payment, the loan.
Yeah.
You know, paying back the loan.
What's the challenge you see there?
Well, a situation where some people are not able to pay, or the criteria is too high for an individual that is grossly indigent. How would you do that? How would you handle that? It will take impact, it will create a huge impact on sustainability. How are they going to sustain the loan application? Because already on the platform they said it's interest-free. Okay, that's...
You don't like that?
No, I like the fact that it's interest-free.
You should only pay when you started working, so the question of being indigent, should it really still come up?
Well, I pray that they finish and get a job. So when the person doesn't get a job, how do you then recover the payment so that another person can get? But those are futuristic problems that they need to look at. I think there should be a support system for persons with disability. It may be a dedicated line or a dedicated chat plugin. This doesn't have a live chat, and I think it should. You know, issues of geographical disparities needs to be taken into consideration. Gender, I'm interested in how they deal with that. Now, the real issue, monitoring and evaluation. How do we monitor the process? How do we ensure that there is accountability? They haven't told us that. what's the accountability mechanism so that we don't see this as another conduit pipe that will increase corruption.
All right, I'm sure that they've got ways to get feedback. We're hoping that even in those FAQs, they should have physically challenged questions for that community as well. But they have said we will attend to everyone who applies, gender or not. Everyone who applies, they said we'll attend to them.
And those are some of the...
everyone includes everyone.
Everyone.
It's
you
everyone.
have to understand that there are certain people with peculiar challenges. You can't group us into it. We are not everyone. You're here. Look at the distance you're looking at the paper.
Mark warned me before we came on set that there are certain words you will use, and you will think that you're going to go and sit after delivering your speech.
No.
Another group will tell you, my friend.
You didn't capture us.
No. So, Chamberlain, you have always been passionate about persons with disability. Mama that I will meet 10 times a day and I won't recognize her and she will always introduce herself. No, you guys are great, you know.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jacob Belle, CEO of TAB Africa. So at least they will factor in including business folks. I mean, Business Morning comes up right now. Don't go away.
And it's the start of the trading day right here in Lagos, Nigeria. Let's get to the top stories that set your agenda now. Starting with the oil market. We see oil prices ticked higher, brought by a bigger than expected weekly decline in U.S. crude stocks. Always keep an eye on the U.S. crude stocks at this point, but we're still trading within that range. That's for Brent, between $83 and $86 per barrel. But we have $85.21 this morning, up by 0.2%. The U.S. grade, $83.16 a barrel, up a bigger 0.4%. But we see the spread between the Brent and WTI price, that's closing up more at this time. It's at the all-time low right now, $83.16. That's for WTI. And to other stories now, we see the management of Dangote Industries Limited have commended the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission for its interventions in the oil company's crude supply requests from international oil companies. However, the Vice President, Oil and Gas, Mr. D.G. Edwin, stated that IOCs have consistently frustrated the company's requests for locally produced crude, forcing them to buy a higher price from trading arms. Mr. Edwin urged NUPRC to address the issue of pricing, noting that the company had to pay $2 to $4 per barrel premium above the official price set by NUPRC. And experts and economists are setting up their crystal balls now to get a sense of what to expect for Nigeria's economy in the second half of 2024. The latest from the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, experts preferred strategies for a possible soft landing for the Nigerian economy. Take a listen.
The Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry 2024 Media Review and Outlook is, as expected, a meeting of economists and think tanks of the Nigerian economy from the private sector.
Nigeria has gone from 3.3 to 3.1.
Economist and Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company, Mr. Bismarck Owani, gives an overview of the current situation.
Fuel subsidies is work in progress, being reduced, but there are still subsidies in the system, and more coming in through import waivers and all of that. The government introduced more aggressive in its tax collection and tax rendition policy. The minimum wage is a hot potato. Nigeria's debt burden, in terms of debt, total, the liabilities have increased. The assets which has been deployed, the use of proceeds is still in question. Domestic debt has skyrocketed, but not only that. In the last 3, 4, 5 years, the people have subsidized the government because treasury bill rates were 2-3%, while inflation rate was 24-25 at that time. Now, because interest rates have increased more to reflect market reality, the debt service, not only the debt has increased, the debt service burden is an issue that deals with us, right?
That allows us now to see federal allocation increase significantly. and therefore available to share.
Chief Consultant of BIA Adedipe, Dr. Biodun Adedipe, food inflation is his biggest concern, especially with the insecurity factor which is keeping farmers from production. This has also limited raw materials for manufacturers.
When food inflation now starts to affect daily living, then we are at the very edge of crisis that can become a repeat of May 1989. If we are going to transform manufacturing, let's just aim over the next 30 years to do 10% of what China did in infrastructure. Why 10%? Land mass of Nigeria is 10% that of China.
The International Monetary Fund has recently downgraded Nigeria's growth for 2024 to 3.1%, citing weaker growth recorded in the first quarter of the year. This represents a 0.2% below the earlier forecast of 3.3%. Economists, however, believe that with more intentional steps towards growth, the economy could outpace these forecasts.
All right, now let's head straight to the FX market. Now, for the close yesterday, we saw weakness in NAFEM and NAFEX 0.32%, but a bigger move down, and that was seen with the NAFEX window, 1,583 naira. So we see both windows flirting with the 1,600 level at this time. 1.56%, that was the close for NAFEX yesterday. So we're seeing weakness this time. Let's bring in Mr. Bismarck Rwani now, CEO of Financial Derivatives Company. Hello, Mr. Bismarck. Great to have you.
Good morning. Thanks for being here.
So what would you say is responsible for this weak performance of the Naira? We see the dollar index, that's dropped from 105 points to 103 points. Our reserves are rising. We've seen interventions from the CBN in the market. Why is the Naira still dropping?
Well, I think that's a very interesting question, to the extent that Nigerians are asking questions as to why is the Naira dropping? Why is the Naira plunging? Why is the Naira languishing? And finally, some are saying, is the Naira jinx? Should I have bought dollars when it was 1,200? Should I have bought dollars when it was 1,100? One thing is clear, that currency markets are as volatile as any commodity for that matter. Two, there are three variables that are driving the value of the Naira today. One is fiscal, that is government spending. As you know, there's a budget that has just been announced, supplementary budget of 6 trillion. The other one, that's fiscal. The other one is cyclical, which is people are investing, at different times in different sectors of the economy, and that is cyclical. That goes with the GDP data at any point in time. And finally, and most importantly, is the fact that there's what we call seasonal demand. What is affecting the Naira today is more of seasonality and then fiscal spend. And if you look at the Naira, it's lost 8% in the last 2 months from May to July. In May, it was trading at 1,485 Naira to a dollar. Today it's trading at 1,615, and in some places as high as 1,650. The official window, as you know, trading at 1,485 in May. Today, that official window is 1,576. And the IATA rate of exchange for tickets, which people buy to travel at this time of the year, was 1,506 Naira to a dollar if you're buying the ticket to London, to New York, to Atlanta. It was 1,506 Naira to a dollar. It's now 1,590. In other words, the Naira has lost 8% in the parallel market, 5.75% in the official market, and 5.28% in the IATA ticket window. Now, why is this happening? Let me break it down for you so you can understand. One is that this is a season of the year when this is summer season, and because there are high fares, people that used to travel 4 or 5 times a year are now traveling once or twice, and so they front load and everything. And this is the time of the year when the weather is favorable, warm weather in Europe, warm weather in Canada, warm weather in the United States, and warm weather in Asia. So this is the friendly time to travel. At the same time, this is the time when schools are resuming. Children are graduating in the May-June season. Those tickets were bought, and schools are resuming in August and September. So there's seasonality of travel, seasonality of IT and digital transaction conferences, and so that's one. Two, the federal government of Nigeria has just granted a waiver and reduction in duty for imported commodities, which will last 150 days from August 1 till sometime in maybe December and January. What this means is that if you imported any commodities, i.e. wheat, sugar, rice, maize, and you would pay no duty. And therefore, it gives you a window. So people are now ordering those commodities. So the demand for commodities, imported commodities, has increased. Well, the problem is that because the demand for commodities has increased, the exchange rate has actually depreciated because of lower supply. Now, the issue is this, that because this demand has increased sharply and the exchange rate is depreciating, the savings from a reduction in duty, right? The savings from that reduction in duty and the waiver is more than compensated negatively by the exchange rate itself. So in the end, by September, October, you will find that those prices which had originally come down have become more expensive because the exchange rate has suffered. And it is happening at a time when the dollar itself is weakening. So naturally, what we should see is an appreciation of the naira at this time against the dollar because the dollar was weakening. But in the reverse is that this has happened. Now, what's the outlook? Now, the reason one is that inflation is expected to moderate towards the end of the year. If inflation moderates, then the exchange rate kind of appreciates and interest rates can come down. But in the meantime, naira spending, 6 trillion naira supplementary budget, minimum wage, which is going to increase the fiscal spending as well, and the fact that there's this seasonal demand is compressed in this period between June and September means that the naira stays weak between now and September. But after September, the naira begins to appreciate gradually and begins to find its true value. Another factor that we have to take into consideration is that Nigeria has actually gone into a lot of commitments, what we call counter-trade commitments, where oil has been pledged forward for dollars coming in. And we had previous commitments. So the cash flow is disrupted by these transactions where we have front-loaded our demand for dollars and entered into various transactions, and that is beginning to affect the value of the naira in the parallel market, at least for now.
Okay, Mr. Ronnie, but looking at other climes at this time, when the U.S. Fed, started the battle against inflation, there started raising rates, then we actually saw the U.S. dollar, especially the DXY, that average there, that actually rose, with the rate hikes. But here, we've seen over 700 basis points in the first half, but we're not seeing the naira actually follow that trend. But if we look at our neighbors like Ghana, South Africa, we're seeing some stability with their currency, even though they also had the same problems. What do you think is stopping the naira from actually following these trends that it should actually follow? And what should be done to make the naira actually sensitive to rate hikes?
Well, I think the understanding is that an increase in interest rates increases the propensity to save, reduces the propensity to consume, and actually, and makes that currency, the domestic currency, more attractive relative to others. But you are assuming that that is the only factor. Apart from the exchange rate, there are other variables that kick in to make inflation high. And if inflation is high, then the currency weakens. And there's a time lag between when you announce policies, when the policies kick in, and when the effect is felt. You mentioned Ghana, South Africa, and Kenya. In all of these countries, and especially let's take Ghana for example, inflation got as high as 54%. They increased interest rates quite aggressively, and now inflation is down to about 28% in Ghana. Same thing in South Africa. They increased interest rates aggressively, and they brought down the inflation rate to about 5%. Every currency and every country has its own fundamental drivers that affect its economy. And that is why I mentioned at the beginning that fundamentally, the Naira should be strengthening if you annualize the trade between the Naira and the Nigerian economy and international partners. But there are seasons of the year when things come together. And that is what I call this seasonality and the cyclicality, which is taking place especially during the summer months. This should ease up later on. However, there's something else. The fiscal spend in some of these countries, the level of leakages in some of these countries is not as high as in Nigeria. So Nigeria, technically speaking, must begin to address the issue of leakages in the system, governance in both the public and private sector, and the linkages between sectors so that you drive it. You're dealing with growth, you're dealing with revenue, and you're dealing with debt at the same time. All of these factors go to support the currency in the long run, but in the short run, we would have some pressure. So expect the Naira to trade at about 15.50, 16.50 for the next 4 to 6 weeks. But after that, it begins to appreciate gradually. There's some hope at the end of the tunnel.
All right. Well, we'll see if we'll get a soft landing for the Naira at this point in this second hour. But thank you so much. Always great to have your perspective, Mr. Bismarck Arani, CEO of Financial Derivatives Company. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll drill down on capital raise season. That's with the banks. That's in a moment. Just stay with us. Welcome back. Well, it's still capital raising season, and a couple of banks are leading the charge right now. But today we'll zero in on Access Holdings plans and what's in it for investors. Join us for this conversation as Mr. Teslim Shetabay, the managing editor, ProShare, joining me right here in the studio. Good morning. Great to have you. Good morning.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. So definitely we see the banks now tapping the markets right now, and Access Holdings, they're right there at the forefront. Talk to me about why they chose to actually go with the pricing that they're going right now and the rationale behind their listing at this point.
Okay, if we start off with the rationale for their listing, obviously the central bank has stated that any bank that wants to engage in international transactions should have a share capital of 500 billion naira. And if you want to stay national, 200 billion naira. So the obvious reason is to show up their share capital, straight up. But the Access Bank issue is particularly interesting because they're trying to raise 351 billion naira by way of rights, saying that, you know what, we have so much confidence in our existing shareholders. We don't need to invite any other person. They have an understanding of what we intend to do, how we intend to do it, and therefore we rely on existing shareholders. And that's why you're seeing them have this massive rights offer of 351 billion naira.
And how do you think these investors are actually taking this at this time? Do you think they're going to be as optimistic, as the bank is?
Well, yes, I think they will be. Access Bank has just announced, I think it was within the week, that they had expanded into Tanzania. The East African economies are doing quite well. Access Bank is there, for instance. And generally speaking, the banking sector for Nigeria has gone on a growth trajectory that all of us have seen. They've had massive amounts of growth and improvement in their fundamentals. Their cost of capital has gone down. The cost-to-income ratios have gone down. Their non-performing loan ratios have gone down. So generally speaking, the sector as a whole has done quite well. And that has been highlighted in ProShare's Tier 1 Bank report for 2024.
All right, so definitely, investors want to put their money where their mouth is. They want to know why they're actually, going into this market. So talk to me about the long-term and short-term benefits that you're seeing for shareholders here.
Well, the thing about it is that investors normally are optimists because they're investing in the future of a company. And the truth of the matter also is that if you're buying the equity of a company, you should have a long-term mindset rather than a short-term mindset. If you have a short-term mindset, you're a trader. If you're an investor, you have a long-term mindset. Because for all the banks, when they raise their share capital, obviously their earnings per share in the short term will decline. That means also dividends per share will also decline for all the banks. However, what's the long-term play? Now, we've just given an example of Access. They're going all over Africa. So that does what? It de-risks them from the challenges of any individual market on the continent. So if Nigeria has a challenge, for instance, they're still making money in Ghana, they're still making money in, like I said, Tanzania or Malawi or Zimbabwe. So the thing about it is a long-term play. In the long term, previously there was no Nigerian bank in the top 10 banks in Africa. Currently, we have 4 Nigerian banks in the top 20, and Access Bank is one of them.
All right, talk to me about the risk of dilution now when it comes to existing shareholders.
Yeah, now, the good thing about it is that if all the shareholders pick up their rights, there's no problem of dilution. Like I said before, unlike banks that will go for public offers or private placements, Access has said we have confidence in our existing shareholders. So you get 1 share for every 2 that you hold. And if you pay for it, there's really no share dilution there because you still have the same proportion as you had in the past. And so there's no dilution. However, where the challenge might be for those who are short-term players is that earnings per share of all the banks, including Access, we expect to decline. However, that's a short-term position. In the long term, the additional capital allows for expansion and growth in the areas of technology, in the areas of intercontinental presence. So it's now about places and spaces. And for Access Bank, we've seen them play creatively and constructively along those lines in terms of taking places and using technology to occupy spaces.
So, definitely looking at the macros, at this time, you see rising inflation, currency devaluation and all the other, issues at this time. Yes. I'm sure most of these banks have not really had to raise capital at a time like this. Most times you see we've not had this, high inflation. So definitely this poses some kind of difficulty for most of these banks, I want to believe.
Okay, yes, so let's take it contextually.
Right.
We've had capital raises in the 80s. We had in 88, we had in 91, 92, right up to actually to 1999, when we started what we called universal banking. It was increased to 2 billion naira. If you look at the charts and you look at Nigeria's gross domestic product growth, the capital raise and the gross domestic product growth didn't show any correspondence. You would have expected that once banks raise capital, they will put that capital to work in the economy and then GDP growth will increase. That didn't happen. But in 2005, 2004, 2005, during the Soludo era, during the bank consolidation, we saw a change. From that era on, we started seeing that the capital that banks were bringing in was also increasing GDP, right? So we've seen, when we moved to 25 billion naira, the GDP started steadily growing up. And then we also saw banks see their businesses grow. So let's come back to what you said about inflation rates. Yes, the inflation rates could be there. But is that necessarily a bad thing for banks? Has inflation necessarily hurt banks over the years? Our research says no, it hasn't. Because banks deal in the business of margins. It's the difference between how much they pay depositors and how much they lend to lenders, borrowers. So we are looking at, say, okay, fine, I can take money, for instance, at a certain rate, and I lend it out, and I have a 7% spread, because banks deal in spreads. That's how you hear things like margins. So they deal in spreads. Their spreads are always protected, because they always make sure that those spreads are there. So even if prices go up, they move up, right? So if deposit costs go up, then the lending costs also go up, so really their spreads are protected. Right?
Quite interesting. The banks always do well, regardless at this point. But let's look at what to expect, for dividends and the share price.
Like I said earlier, I think, and Promotion's position is that in the short term, we believe that earnings per share will decline. And that's because there's so much new shares coming in. They're growing at a rate faster than the rate of growth of the bank's earnings. The bank's earnings will grow, but they won't grow at a rate as fast as the growth in their share capital. Therefore, earnings per share will decline. And your dividends come out of your earnings. So your dividend per share will also take a slight knock. But that is short term. It depends on how the bank applies the fresh capital that's coming. So as the bank applies that capital and makes it sweat, we begin to see earnings ratchet up pretty quickly. And therefore, share prices also rise as those earnings grow. So in the medium to long term, good prospects for banking sector.
Right, and I keep, asking this question at this time. There's a cost of living crisis right now. Yeah. We have some investors that have been on the sideline. Some that don't even care about investing at this point. Then we have the investors. What's your advice to most of these investors about these shares we're seeing at this point?
My advice is that if they have liquidity, I must admit, many of us don't. But if they have liquidity, it's an opportunity.
Right.
It's a good opportunity for them to take advantage of the relatively low prices that they will see now and wait out for a couple of years, and then they begin to earn significant capital gains.
Right, so regardless, try to invest at this point. Thank you so much, Mr. Teslim Shitabe, Managing Editor, ProShare.
Thank you very much.
So much for coming on the show. All right, so there you have it, and we saw the local boss actually buck the three-day positive trend. That was yesterday with that negative close. But we'll take a quick commercial break right now. That's it from me on Business Morning before we hand you over to the Sunrise Daily team. Bye-bye.
Access Holdings, we are heading into the next phase of our evolution. And with our rights issue, you get an increased stake in it. From the 8th of July to the 14th of August, you can get your share of over 17 billion shares at 19.75 naira per share. That's one new ordinary share to every 2 shares held. Visit theaccesscorporation.com to subscribe. Access Holdings, where financial solutions connect the world.
Stay connected to the world with Channels TV Podcast and get all the trending stories. Simply log on to channelstv.com, click on podcast, select the program of your choice, and listen. Our podcast is available on Apple, Google, and Spotify. Tap the expertise you trust. Touch the stories that touch you. Anytime, anywhere.
We are thrilled to have you on board as we chart the course for our next chapter. We're inviting you to take up your rights in full for 19.75 naira per share. From the 8th of July to 14th of August, take advantage of the chance to acquire one more ordinary share for every 2 shares in your portfolio. Visit www.theaccesscorporation.com to subscribe. Access Holdings, where financial solutions connect the world.
Had barely settled after they converged for the first plenary in the week,
when a letter from the national headquarters of the All Progressives Congress was read by the President of the Senate against the utterances of Senator Ali Ndume.
His latest tirade, government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, President, Commander-in-Chief, has been run by thieves. His utterances, which are sheer propaganda, are not based on verifiable facts. We are of the opinion that distinguished Senator Mohammed Tahe Monguno should immediately replace distinguished Senator Ali Ndume.
According to the letter, the APC indicates that Senator Ndume resigned his membership from the party and formally joined the opposition rather than decimate the cohesion the party currently enjoys. The matter is then put to a voice vote.
Those of you who are in support of the decision by the party, can you shout aye? Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Only a lone voice was heard in dissent. Consequently, the four-time senator is sacked and replaced by his counterpart from Borno North. The senator, who is conspicuously absent, has been making critical remarks about the president, the nation's economic hardship and food scarcity in the country. He's also stripped as co-chair of the Appropriations Committee in a mild reshuffling.
The chairman of the Senate Committee on Tourism becomes distinguished Senator Mohammed Ali Ndume.
After attending to other businesses of the day, the matter is resuscitated following a point of order.
I have received several calls far and near on why a senator, especially a ranking senator of the Federal Republic, will call all of us kleptomaniacs. I would like this matter of privilege to be referred to the Committee on Ethics and Privileges.
Those who believe that the party APC has taken appropriate sanctions and therefore it should not be referred to any further committee, say aye. And those again say nay. The ayes have it.
In 2017, under the 8th Assembly, Senator Ali Ndume, as leader, equally faced sanctions and was suspended for 6 months over false allegations leveled against former Senate President Senator Bukola Saraki and Senator Dino Melaye, bordering on certificate forgery, among others. Meanwhile, against the backdrop of the Plateau School building collapse and in a matter of urgent national importance, the Senate has asked the federal government to immediately prosecute all those found violating the laid-down rules for construction and establish structures to halt construction failures going forward. From the National Assembly, Gloria Omezuke, Channels Television News.
Olala Konde joins us here, former presidential aide. Good morning, Lalo. Thank you for coming on.
Good morning.
You know, looking at that particular part of the Senate, removing Ali Ndume, replacing him with somebody else as chief whip.
Right.
You know, is it possible or remotely possible that the president is not aware that this was going to happen? Because it was criticism against the president. Some of them part of what was said.
Yeah, well, you know, your guess is as good as mine. You know, possibly depends on whether he sits down and watches the proceedings of the Senate, or he waits for the resolutions, you know, that normally come to him. But I think the first thing that I would like to highlight is the fact that we don't have in Nigeria today party democracy being conducted in the normal way. Now, you can't have a democracy or a democratic system without some form of dissent, you know, without some form of criticisms and a venue for those criticisms to be heard. Now, normally you would even expect the opposition to be the one in the parliament that will be raising the voices. The opposition is basically silent, you know, for the most part. But you have an Ali Ndume, who is a member of the ruling party. Now, my first question is that, Senator Ali Ndume, what happened to your party? How come you guys in your party, in your caucus, haven't discussed these issues? And if you have, how come the issues have not been properly publicized to the public that, hey, we are dealing with these issues? You don't have that. Now, you have a situation where in the Senate, the parliament of the people, that is where APC is washing its dirty linings. Very important. This is completely important. That's not the business of the people. The people don't care, whether a senator sees the president or not. The people care for the senators to do the work that they were assigned to do. Where was Ali Ndume when we were talking about 150 million naira worth of SUVs? He was silent. Where was Ali Ndume when we were talking about people putting their cronies in high neck? He was silent. Now, but because Ali Ndume didn't get access to the president, he's bringing the matter up. I think that it's time that we begin to call some of these leaders out and say, look, the parliament, the Senate, the National Assembly is for public interest. You don't want to be bothered about your own partisan issues. Sort yourself out. Fix your party.
It's interesting that you talk about the party and its role, and the fact that, okay, it doesn't appear that Senator Leon Dume has raised the issues he's raised purely on altruistic motives. It would appear that it's because perhaps his own ego has been injured somewhere, and that's why these issues have now come up, and he's raising up issues of hunger, etc. But even the manner in which the Senate has gone about it, I mean, the Senate president was said to have read a letter from the leadership of the APC, saying that they would like him to step down, and, that was handled as a letter coming from the... You would have thought that there would have been some caucus meeting, within the political party itself, which would have summoned a meeting, perhaps, of senators for them to decide on what to do. But it doesn't appear that has happened. Instead, the party has written a letter. Is this normal practice?
I think it is not acceptable, and I don't think it's normal. Well, we have to go and check, what these guys have been doing just to be sure. But it doesn't sound to me normal. Now, how come you are reading a letter on the floor of the Senate, written by the chairman of your party or the
exactly. How does it concern PDP members, for instance?
Exactly. And it's interesting that PDP members and the ALP members, they're able to just sat down there, like sitting dogs. It's just they're just turning the whole thing to a kind of very pathetic melodrama. It's uncalled for. You guys go and fix your stuff. Don't bring the letter of your chairman to the floor of the House.
That will mean that tomorrow, the PDP chairman, too, can write to the president of the Senate and expect him to read it.
Yeah, well, I'm sure he wouldn't read it.
NMPP, too, might write.
Yeah.
And then who knows? Because if they've done it for one,
I don't know. The arguments come from the fact that we also know that when it comes to the leadership, because this is about the leadership of the National Assembly now, as Senator Ndume is the chief whip.
Yeah.
Yes, of the leadership of the National Assembly. So could it be, because we know that usually when it comes to selecting leadership, usually the president of the Senate will read the letter, as to who has been decided. Yeah. So do you think that's where that is coming from?
Well, so what they should have just done is fix their own stuff behind the scene. They have their caucuses, call Ndume and say, hey, look, we've lost confidence in you being the chief whip, and then they come to the House and just make an announcement
of the new chief whip.
That is how it ought to be. Godswill Akpabio has no business, carrying us, tagging us along as a people to the watching of their deadlines.
Can they just read it out like that without going through? Because he emerged via a process. So even if they tell him, chances are that he might not agree.
No, boy.
So he has to be pushed.
They voted him. They picked their leadership.
So that's the thing.
So he didn't have a choice.
So there are two things. Because part of what I read, yes, you're asking that, should the party chairman be the one writing? Because that impression from what we saw out there was there are those who thought that if the party chairman is writing, look, he's the chief whip of the Senate, not of the APC. So it should be the Senate that should decide who our person is.
Officers.
And so it should be the Senate that should say, no, we have an issue with this chap. Because they say if it's allowed to stand like this, it suggests that the party or the executive now is the one pulling the string behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So how can they ever correct that impression?
It's completely, and I don't understand why. I mean, one of the things that I find quite aggravating is that all of them senators just sit down there, and these things just go on as long as my personal interest is not affected. I'll just keep quiet and let them do their thing. And this is the trend that you see in a lot of the public service, especially the elected officials. It's only about their personal interest. Once their personal interest is protected, everybody keeps a sealed lip. But hey, anytime the personal interest is affronted, then that is where they find their voice. Now, that is not why you were elected. You guys were elected because the people wanted their own businesses to be so that we are still dealing with a lot of issues. Minimum wage. How come somebody is not banging the table and saying, Mr. President, I think, how long is it going to take you to bring this bill? You won't find out.
Yeah, so, but, you raised the issue of dissent. Well, some people say whether or not, because in the interview which Senator Ali Ndume was said to have granted, which caused this particular uproar, he spoke about a lot of things. Not being accessible. I imagine that a question that would raise access to the president will be, have you been able to tell the president this sort of things? And then he might say, oh, I've not been able to reach him. But the things which he has raised, the issues around hunger, the issues around the difficulty in the economy, etc., they're very valid reasons, aren't they? So is it that, the APC is finding itself in a situation whereby it is intolerant of, listening to the voices of its own members who are not exactly in tandem with, whatever it is that they're trying to tell Nigerians?
Yeah, and that was my first point, that, look, a proper political party in a democracy ought to have its own avenues. So, for instance, the ANC, one of the oldest political parties in Africa, okay, they hold party conferences at least twice a year. Guess what happens at those conferences? The president and the leaders are called out openly by members of the party who will raise critical issues, and then they will explain, and then the consensus will be built. But guess what? Whether it's APC or whether it's PDP or whether it's LP, no such thing happens. Okay? There are no
in our own climate.
In their own climate, no such thing happens, especially in this Fourth Republic. Remember that in the Second Republic, it used to be a different ballgame. The party leaders had considerable influence, and you had this kind of interaction. We refer to the example of Aldo Obey. Said that, look, they were being fed, and Shagari gets a call from the party chairman, he stops fed. So all of that is gone. You don't even have the organs of the party holding meetings. When last did any of the parties held their neck? We even understand that in APC, the NWC members don't even know what is going on. Now, Ndume is not happy, and then the next place to go is the press. And you are right, important issues, no doubt about that. But they raise those important issues only, and that's my point. It's only when they are not benefiting. And we need to call that out. We know what the issues are, yes, of course, and we have to speak about them. But hey, you guys don't pretend to be part of that issue. No. You are doing this, Ali Ndume, a lot of you guys, most of you guys, you are doing this only when you are affronted. And it's important to say it so that people know what game is going on.
Interesting, you just mentioned minimum wage, and something happened yesterday. There was also conversation around minimum wage, even though it's not yet, it wasn't minimum wage. It was, no, the budget.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember now.
Over 6 trillion.
Over 6 trillion naira, the president asking them to increase the budget by. We had brought up this issue before, when he had asked that 2023 budget capital expenditure be extended, way past June this year. It's unclear what that was for, but that's what we're saying. But now we're being told that, 6-point-something trillion naira was, the request was made. The members of, I think the Senate discussed it, I think he approved it. There was some debate. We saw Senator Shomole and one other senator raise it, Senator Dixon. Senator Dixon was against it, Senator Shomole was for it and said they should pass it expeditiously. While in the House of Reps, they had to go behind closed doors. There was a closed door session at that particular one. So there are questions as to what precisely that was about. Because some people imagine that there might have been some opposition against it in the House, And maybe that closure session was to calm nerves.
To iron things out.
Iron things out, not in the eyes of the public.
Well, I mean, if the president needs more money, to do the business of the people, yeah, it has to be discussed publicly, and I think that...
Are you not alarmed, though?
About the level of...
about the budget?
Well, look, so the problem I can see is that if this is approved, and I think it's going to be approved, then we'll probably be running about 3 or 4 budgets at the same time. I think it's important for them to put all this thing together into at least one bunch, because when you have the budget of 2023, it has, it by itself, it's supplementary, budget of 2024, and this new one, everything together, it brings quite a bit of confusion and allows, or disallows effective oversight. So it's important to tidy all of these things. I'm not bothered if we can find the money appropriately and if it is spent properly. My concern is the hastiness and the seeming confusion of the whole thing, the chaos around it. These are the things that we need to sort out.
I was going to shoot me for, but I can't help it. I have to quickly bring. Are you a little alarmed that there's been no debunking of whether or not a new aircraft has been bought for the president or not?
Well, yeah, I don't think they want to debunk it. I think that the Senate president again came out, if you remember, to say that, oh, if the president needs the jet, we're going to buy it.
Yes, but the word is out now that the jet has already been bought.
Yeah, because I think they know it's the truth and they don't want to, they just want to leave it as it is. I'm sure that very soon you will find a jet in Nigeria, so... Yeah, but I mean, that is another signal that, are we sensitive about what is happening in this country? Is this the right time to buy, I've even heard that it's possibly 2 jets. I said, how is that possible? They said it's possible 2 jets. Okay, is it the right time to buy that? Is it the right time to build a 20 billion naira house for the vice president? Is it the right time to give 90 billion for her? Look, it's a lot of insensitivity that is going on. And the Nigerian people just need a bit of empathy. Now, you're telling the people, let's tighten our belts, we have to take a lot of these very difficult measures just so the future is going to be better. People understand that perfectly. What they don't understand is that what you are doing yourself, what the government officials are doing, is not in tandem with what they are saying. And there are no 2 ways of sorting this matter out. You just have to show a bit of sensibility that, look, we too, we are tightening our belts.
Ayo.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark. Well, Mr. Konde, talking about that jet, do you see any justification for it?
So what we've been told, and there's no way to check this out as yet, is that the president's jet, and I even think the vice president's jet too, seems to have developed some problems. Now, without any further detail about that, we can't come out and say, no, that's not true. So that is what is said, which is the reason why we are being told that they have to get new ones. Now, if there is a problem that it will be cheaper for them to buy a new jet, that seems to be something that makes sense. But what I thought, the president and the vice president ought to do is to use that opportunity to demonstrate a little bit of sensitivity that we actually resonate with Nigerian people. Sacrifice something. Show some sacrifice. Even if for a month, say that, look, you know what, that jet is not working, we're going to find... Look, prime ministers of the United Kingdom, the prime minister of India, at times they fly commercial. Do something to show the people that you are sensitive. And you will see how far that we go. That's my own point. I can't say that if they say that the jets are faulty and it's not safe, I can't say that, oh, you got to use that. No, nobody's going to say that. But we are saying that you have to also balance that with the place where the people are, with the hardship in the land, with the fact that, prices of commodities is going up, with the fact that inflation is now like 35%. And people are struggling. Instead of using tomato, people are using carrots. It's just so there's a lot that is happening, and we are not saying that efforts are not being made, but in this area of showing some sensitivity, we really need to up our game. The government people, they need to up their games and show the Nigerian people that we are sensitive.
Well, you know, Mr. Conde, I mean, having been in that saddle before, you probably have some understanding more than a few of us, you know, right now on that matter. Difficult decisions have to be taken all the time. I'm wondering how you would, what you even feel about the decisions, the difficult decisions that have to be taken, particularly when Nigerians don't have all of the facts. If you can just speak to that in about 30 seconds.
Well, so I don't know which specific example you want me to
no specifics, actually. No specifics, Mr. Conde, but just the fact that government has to take very difficult decisions. I mean, you've been in government before, so help us understand how that goes and how that you have to take the decision. It's painful, but you can't give all of the facts, and Nigerians are expected to understand.
Yeah, well, I get the point. So, and that is where the question of trust comes in. A lot of the times, government will have to take decisions that in the interim will not look good at all. But because of the level of planning and the insights that people in government have, which people outside don't have, they have to be able to explain it properly to the people and then show something that will build trust. What is lacking really higher is that there is abysmal level of distrust between those that are government leaders, elected leaders, you know, and the people. That is why it is becoming more and more difficult. Oftentimes when you have to take a difficult decision and you carry everybody along, you identify who the stakeholders are, you have meetings with them, you know, at different levels before you even announce it, then the people are likely to show some understanding.
Well, yeah.
But when all of those are absent, in a situation where there is a lot of distrust, then it becomes even more difficult. But to your point, yes, there are several tough decisions, even decisions about importation. When do you import? When do you not import? Look at what is happening about this, the food crisis, what is almost becoming a food crisis.
Absolutely.
So it's a tough decision for the government to say, you know what, we have to just import food just so our people don't die right now. But that's a very, very tough one because you also have a situation where you're trying to encourage local production.
Well, it's the job they signed up for. Yeah, my apologies, Mr. Akon. It's a giant job that they signed up for. I mean, it's something you understand. Perhaps, you know, the more reason that someone like you should help people generally and those in government in the position where you held before to understand their responsibility more. Perhaps another thing in that line is the issue of the local government autonomy. Implementation is the issue that a number of people are looking at now. How significantly and how quickly do you think we can get to the level of implementation that will get people at the local levels to trust that process more, much more within the shortest possible time? Because it's at that level that people come out to vote the least for now.
Yeah. So few things have to happen in order for the implementation of the new local government, especially financial autonomy, to work properly. Few things have to happen. But the most important and the most immediate is that the governors have to understand that ultimately it is going to depend on them. They are still the governors of the state. So they will be the ones that have to set the ball rolling. Let me give you an example. So a lot of argument have been said that, look, one of the reasons why this idea of joint account came up was because some of the local governments were not paying teachers' salary, and then there are municipal services that crisscross beyond one or two local governments, you know, and so it's not easy to split the responsibility. So there's a particular municipal service that has to be, for instance, primary education, that has to be taken care of by contiguous local governments, maybe around 5 of them. So how do you sort out the payment? So the governors have to be the one to lead the charge without them controlling the process. Okay, so for instance, in New York and New Jersey, okay, because those two states are close together, there's a lot of people living in New Jersey, working in New York, and so you find out that New York and New Jersey, we set up between themselves a board that will manage those issues. So it's time that the local governments, for instance, we have to sit down and say, oh, look, we all share teachers, we share schools, our boundaries are very contiguous, it's very difficult to separate stuff. So all the 5 of us, we have to come together and form a board that will be the oversight. But the governors are the ones who have to take the lead. So if the governors are going to say that, look, hey, just like the guy in Oyo State is saying, it's like saying that, look, this can't work. That attitude is wrong. The governors must be the one to lead the process without controlling it.
All right. So because if they violate the laws brought them in there.
Yeah.
So if they violate the laws, then that will not be a good way. Thank you for coming on down, Lakonde.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that ends it today as well. We'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain Asaf. Goodbye.
Can't wait for Friday. Good morning. Good morning to you, and thank you for watching. I'm Mark Welcome, Yusuf.
All right, do have a productive day. I'm Ayo Makinde. Bye for now.
Admission. Admission is ongoing at Koladaisi University, Ibadan, where we have state-of-the-art laboratories and studios with structured, uninterrupted academic calendar. You can enroll for a variety of courses in the Faculty of Basic Medical Sciences, Faculty of Law, Faculty of Pure and Applied Sciences, and Faculty of Arts, Management and Social Sciences. For inquiries, please call 070-3795-3524, 070-3782-1221, 080-6015-8996, or visit our website on www.koladaisiuniversity.edu.ng. Koladaisi University, advancing the frontiers of knowledge. Announcer, Mr. Aruna Olawale Adetu, Registrar and Secretary to the Council, Koladaisi University, Ibadan.
The following is a paid presentation by ShopX TV. You're watching ShopX TV, home to some of the most popular international brands in Africa. We are now proud to introduce our biggest offer of the year, the ShopX Mid-Year Sales. Yes, from now until the end of July 2024, we will be offering our customers 20,000 Naira off this home fitness machine. SportX Digital Compact Treadmill. The compact foldable treadmill that makes being active and losing weight fast and easy. Just unfold it and walk, jog, or run. And when you're done, just fold it and store it away. You get the SportX Digital Compact Treadmill System complete with a rugged commercial-grade traction belt, large LCD multifunctional display that displays speed, time, distance, calories, and has 12 different exercise programs, as well as a magnetic safety key.
The SportX treadmill has really helped me get back in shape after childbirth.
You would normally pay up to 400,000 Naira for the SportX Compact Digital Treadmill. But call the number on your screen now or scan the QR code and get the SportX Compact Digital Treadmill for just 380,000 Naira, saving you 20,000 Naira. Incredible! Call the number on your screen now to place your order. The proceeding was a paid presentation brought to you by ShopX TV.